Welcome everyone to One on One here at WFUV Sports, New York's longest running sports call-in show. I'm Nick Feta. Thomas Aiello is here with me as well. Thomas, we got a packed slate tonight, man. Lots of sports going on all over the place. NBA playoffs in full swing, as well as the NHL. We got Mets and Yanks to talk about too, and a little bit NBA draft, lottery, and some news towards the end of the show as well. Thomas, how you doing tonight?
Nick, I'm doing good. And, I've hosted a lot of shows with a lot of great people here at FUV, but you and I, we've always had to host a show at some point, and I'm happy that we're doing it. You and I doing a little pod on the side, but I'm ready. I'm ready to go. We got an action-packed show. I was up all night last night prepping. I was so excited. And you know what? We got a lot to talk about. We got the NBA playoffs. We got the Suns. Chris Paul's coming back. We got the Bucks Hawks. We're going to talk about the Nets Sixers. That's going to be a trip. The Celtics hiring a new coach, Yankees, Mets, what's in store for them. We got a lot of stuff and playoff hockey. I mean, I don't know if we could ask for a better show today.
Covering everything. So let's jump right into what's about to happen here. Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. The Atlanta Hawks will be visiting the Milwaukee Bucks. Thomas, this is obviously a surprise season from the Hawks, surprise playoff run. They have been spectacular, arguably one of, if not the hottest team in basketball right now. So my question to you is, can they take down this tyrant of a team in the Milwaukee Bucks, and what is the main key for them to do so?
Well, first of all, I do want to say Knicks fans shouldn't feel as salty as they think they should be, because this Hawks team is legit, okay? They've got Trae Young, who has just been torching opposing guards left and right. We saw it in the Knicks series where he just walked past practically whoever he wanted. And then the Philadelphia series, he struggled a bit against Ben Simmons, Matisse Thybulle. The length kind of bothered him, but he did get the job done. He had a terrific fourth quarter in Game 7. And now here he is. He's going to be going up against Drew Holiday, who was a first-team All-NBA defensive player, got signed to a big contract by the Bucks, and rightfully so, because his value on that side of the floor is second to none. So if we look at this series, okay, the Bucks are coming off of a wild Game 7 in Brooklyn where it was overtime. Kevin Durant's shoe just cost the Nets basically their season. You have Brook Lopez selling on that inbound play where he just kind of had a soup brain moment, kind of forgot to shoot the basketball, I guess we could say. And then in overtime, Chris Middleton shot a panic three from almost the logo. And then you have Holiday, who went 5 for 23. And the other side, James Harden, who we'll get to later, went 5 of 17. And then the Nets just had sleepy Joe Harris. I don't know where he went. He just must have been taking a nap, I guess. And Kevin Durant being really good. And somehow Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Bucks overcome it all. But how it pertains to this particular series, the Atlanta Hawks, despite being a massive underdog and having one of the wildest seasons, in fact, I think I've ever seen in a long time, are probably going on to an NBA Finals championship victory. So I'm going to pick the Hawks to win this and the Hawks to win the finals. They have too much weaponry. There's Kevin Huerter, who is really good. Bogdanovich was a great signing. Gallinari, Lou Williams, John Collins. You got when he's healthy, DeAndre Hunter. I mean, that was a big piece for them, and somehow they're still really good without him. Tony Snell is still around, and Capella's in the paint, and of course, all of that headed by the offensive machine that is Trae Young. So I'm picking the Hawks. I'm not gonna double guess myself this time. Hawks in 6 against the Bucks and the championship.
That's where you're nuts. I don't know where you're going with the championship aspect, but I could definitely see it is 100% possible that the Hawks take this series. And like you said, the weaponry there is it. They are just a perfect modern NBA team. They shoot the ball spectacularly. Trae Young is a talent like really only Steph Curry, really, if you're ever going to compare that. But what I look at is it's their pick and roll offense and the shooters that surround it. And they've just come together. They've gotten so tough through these playoffs. The Knicks obviously were a tough team to play physically, mentally. The Sixers are a very talented team who, of course, major collapse for them. They're here now, and Milwaukee, of course, proved themselves as well. But I don't know if the Hawks have that much gas left in the tank to take down a team like the Bucks. They're big, they shoot, they can do everything. The Bucks, I think, maybe better. They have such a deep team. Giannis obviously is the best player in this series, and he showed he can play in these big minutes like he did against the Nets. He had 40 points in a game 7. What else do you need from your superstar? Drew Holiday, like you mentioned, I think is one of the most underrated players in the league, and he deserves all the credit in the world for what he can do. If I had to guess, I'm saying we're going to see him as the primary defender on Trae Young. Then again, how does that affect his offensive game? It's going to be very interesting to see that play out, and that's where I just love these new series is kind of coming together. Even the Western Conference Finals, of course, we'll get to next. You just have new matchups and new dynamics of player on player rivalries being created. You don't know really what you're going to get in each series, and that's what I think is so exciting here. I'm going to counter you, though. I don't even know. The Hawks, yeah, they can win. Will they? No. I think it's going to be the Bucks in 6. But I will make a surprise pick. I will say that the Hawks will take Game 1. I think they're going to sneak out a victory in Game 1, like they did against the Knicks, like they did against the Sixers. I think they're going to take that Game 1, and if they do that, that's really their chance to then take the whole series.
I think what we're also forgetting with the Hawks is, I mean, they're a hot team. Let's not kid ourselves. They have just basically set the NBA community on fire. I think the second part we're forgetting is how motivated Trae Young is, because people, including me, have called Luka Doncic one of, if not perhaps the best player in the league, and that's going to happen very soon. You watch. But Trae Young, that trade alone just motivates him. Like, that motivates him enough to say, I'm going to go out there and drop 40 and 20 assists. Hey, and you have Knicks fans chanting Trae is balding. You had the guy spit on him, and that just only made him even madder. And we all know how that went. In Philadelphia, you have even more ruthless fans, and they're really jawing at Trae Young. The Trae is balding chance came back. But you know what? I think he's relished the role of being
being the villain. Yep.
He absolutely thrives, relish, embraces, loves it. Whatever adjective you want to use. He loves being the villain. And it's safe to say, under Nate McMillan, who's a little bit more of a drill sergeant of a coach, he's become a little bit more disciplined. You don't see him taking as many insane 3-pointers like he used to. He's impacting winning by making key assists and great plays. He knows when he has to shoot and when he can digress to a Gallinari on the wing. And here's the other thing. This is the common theme I've been bringing up all playoffs. You need players who can't just be stationary players. You need players that can go off the bounce. That's where I think the Hawks really kill teams, because pretty much 5 or 6 of their guys from the 1 through 4 position, if we don't include Capella and Onyeka Okongwu, everyone has some kind of handle. I mean, Trae Young, Lou Williams can create. You got Kevin Huerter, who can not only go off of flare screens and curl screens, but he can go off the bounce. Bogdanovich can dribble quite a bit. You've got Danilo Gallinari, who, I mean, I'm not going to tell him he's stuck in quicksand, but he's not immobile of a player. John Collins can dribble a little bit. The Hawks can do a lot of things, and they do a lot of things really well. I think Trae Young being the guy that is running this whole Hawks explosion, this might be – Drew Holiday is going to be panting after Game 2, I think. There's a good chance he's panting after Game 2.
And speaking of Trae Young facilitating everything in Atlanta, let's bring it over now. Like you stated before, in the West, Game 3, Chris Paul's supposed to come back in this series for the Suns. He is their spirit, heart, and soul of that team, the veteran leadership, obviously. But who would have thought? Actually, personally, I did think, but Suns up 2-0 in another series. No Chris Paul in those first 2 games. Obviously, the Clippers are not at their full strength, too, without Kawhi. But Suns up 2-0. Crazy, crazy finish. Probably the craziest finish we've seen in a playoff game this season. Jay Crowder, 0.8 seconds on the clock, lobs it up, nice and easy for a dunk, Ayton, game over, 2-0 Suns. I'm gonna say this is just now. You're making bold predictions. I'm gonna make a bold one. I don't think anything is gonna top your Hawks pick because that's
okay.
I don't know. That'll be on me for the rest of the show, I think. But I think it's another sweep for the Suns in this series. I see Chris Paul coming back, and it's not like he's a type of player who comes back, you got to change your offense. You know, he is the creator, the general. He will decide how the offense functions, and the team goes right with him. I just think him coming back in this Game 3 is much sooner than most people anticipated, especially now they have a 2-0 lead. It's like, whoa, they're already up this big, and he's coming back. What are the Clippers supposed to do? So What are the Clippers supposed to do?
I mean, you're asking me. I have no idea,
Yeah.
but I really don't want to just give the sweep away to the Suns. Now, I have a confession because I am guilty of calling Tyronn Lue a lousy coach and that he's LeBron's puppet. I I think he's a decent coach. I think he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
I mean, people gave him a lot of what at the end of the Cleveland run, and that was, you could also base that on how that roster was constructed and who the personnel was and the situation they were put in. But I think with what he has, the Clippers, they're just this hilariously built team, essentially of like buyouts and just bums, like Reggie Jackson, okay, buyout from Detroit, and he's incredible. He averages like 16 points for them. He shoots
Boogie Cousins.
You got Nick Batum, another buyout from Charlotte, who's been their center basically, and he's played pretty all right. You got Ivica Zubac, who was Laker scraps. Patrick Beverly was Rocket scraps in the Chris Paul trade. DeMarcus Cousins was a buyout from the Rockets. You've got Luke Kennard, who was in the Blake Griffin trade. Rondo, who was literally swapped for Lou Williams, and now Trey Mann is just this magical player. And Marcus Morris, the former one-time Knick, who I think you and I can agree we enjoyed watching him play on our Knicks. He's another three-point shooter that they have, a physical player. So, I mean, I'm not going to count out this Clippers team. It's experienced players that know how to get a job done when they have to. They got their backs against their wall. They're going back to the Staples Center, might I add. So they're hilariously the team as they are and how they're constructed. I'm not going to put a sweep on this just yet. Now, you bring up a good point. Chris Paul is coming back. I don't know what he eats, what he drinks, where he drinks or eats from. If I can get some of that, please let me know. He has become magical. I don't know what he does, what he practices at home. He's just a magician, and he makes the Suns the 2 seed. And I think the other thing we have to bring up is Devin Booker had 20 points and 2 stitches on his nose last night, and he didn't play that good. So I think the Suns, I mean, I know they're good, and I'm not knocking this performance, the Ayton game winner and that dunk he had before, that was really exciting. But this Clippers team is just full of experience, full of wisdom and knowledge. And you have a guy who's won an NBA Finals as a head coach, and you've got Paul George, who went head-to-head with LeBron James multiple times, so he knows what it's like to have your backs against the wall. I don't know. I'm not calling it a sweep. I have no idea who's going to win Game 3. I honestly I'm undecided.
Well, the good news for anyone who's going against my thoughts is the Clippers, of course, were down 0-2 in both of their series beforehand, so they're certainly not done. Maybe they will be in 4, but this does not mean anything too terrible for the Clippers because they have overcome this. They've done it twice, not just once. Then again, of course, Kawhi Leonard was there for those comebacks. He's just their silent assassin, but he's not anymore. Everyone knows that. It's obvious.
He's just silent.
Well, he's just silent in general, yeah. But so that's what I mean. I think the Suns with Chris Paul coming back. I mean, the unmentioned unsung hero last night as well was Campaign, 29 points as a starting point guard. It just seems like with Chris Paul coming back, I think there's too much firepower there. I don't know if the Clippers have it in them, but again, like you said, they're tough, experienced, they've shown resilience. I think they could potentially fight, but my pick is the sweep. We'll transition now to Brooklyn, who another team, as Stephen A. Smith called it, karma. I know you love him, but karma for Brooklyn. Losing in 7. Obviously, they had their health issues, but those issues might have came from guys like Kyrie not playing in a lot of games, Harden holding out in Houston. So it's a lot of variables that come together to make it maybe not the perfect season like the Nets needed. My takes in the past have been Nets easy to the finals, and I've been getting bashed for that now too, but good for Milwaukee. They took them down. Even if they were not fully healthy in Brooklyn, does not matter. Those guys are supposed to be the number 1 team. They fell short of their expectations. That's why they went home, and Milwaukee's now playing Game 1 tonight. I want to say now, I do agree with Stephen A. Ironically, I never do. But if you have to pick one thing that really killed them in this series outside of injuries, and I already think I know your answer, but you got to pick one thing outside of the injuries that hurt this Nets team, that made them lose this series. What is it?
Oh, I want to know what you think my answer is going to be. Now I'm going to ask you what.
Your boy Sleepy
No.
Joe Harris. No. Wow. Okay.
You know what messed it up? I point to a couple of things. I think number one is the amount of bench pieces they rotated throughout the year. I thought that might be a little part of it. Okay, they went through like Amon Shumpert, Noah Vonleh, Norvell Pell, who has become a Knicks cheerleader. So shout out to him. They went through Aldridge. Unfortunately, that had a medical complication. So we hope he's doing all right. LaMarcus, if you ever find this, what's up, dude? And that's part of it. Okay, rotating through so many bench players has just been an atrocity. The second thing that I point to is you have to understand James Harden in the playoffs. You know, he has not performed well in the playoffs. He contributed to the 28 consecutive missed threes in Houston.
Yeah.
He was terrible in the bubble besides game 1 and round 2 against the Lakers. But I think the bubble should be kind of voided. It was a little bit of a skewed environment, I thought. And number 3, the James Harden trade also just killed the Nets. And here's where I say the James Harden trade killed the Nets. We talked about the Hawks earlier, right? How many players did I name on the Hawks that can do stuff? About what, 8 or 9, maybe?
Their whole rotation.
Right. The Nets offense, I found Steve Nash's playbook, is literally this. This is what it is. Okay. It's a stick figure with a basketball, and I drew a hoop here, and it says KD, Kyrie, or Harden fall into hoop and win game. That's not going to work. Okay. Lacking depth in a playoff series, just with the way that the Nets have been constructed, everything they've gone through. You mentioned injuries too. Durant playing like 30-something games. Kyrie going down didn't help them. I think it was all of that. But I think the biggest problem was Steve Nash, the James Harden trade, and just the lack of bench. Because if they had LeVert and Jarrett Allen, that could have been nice to have against the Bucks. Karis LeVert, who can go off the dribble, he can shoot a bit, plays a little defense, he can create for others and himself. Jarrett Allen, who would by far and away be the best defensive player on the Nets.
Yep.
And you're running Nick Claxton out there, and I know Blake Griffin played well, but that's not going to beat, teams that just have incredible length like the Bucks or the Hawks. And that's going to kill you in that scenario. And I don't know if half of these guys come back next year. I think you can kind of bring that up a little bit. I don't know yet. It's a very tough question, but I don't know what they can do from here. It was
I don't want to necessarily lose faith in that trio of guys put together because, again, I've stated it so many times. It's arguably the most talented group of guys you've seen put together all in their prime. Did they really play together? No, that was the problem this year. The injuries hurt it, and obviously LeBron mentioned that the season should have started later. They shouldn't have started so early. That's why guys got hurt. Sure, that's part of it, but I mentioned before, it was the karma of Kyrie just deciding, let me take an off day. Harden holding out in Houston. KD did get hurt. He also already recovered from an injury. It's a lot playing into it. So the injuries, of course, are really a main factor of what killed this supposedly is supposed to be a historical run by the Nets. It just didn't happen. It was a championship or bust for them. I believe that since they got these three together. But that's the thing. Next year now, okay, you're not playing in the finals. You're getting your rest. You're going to be able to recuperate for next year and figure it out. So I don't think it's worth quitting on anything after 1 year. I think if any of those three guys decide that, they're crazy. But going back to the point is there's really no excuse as a team. Guys go down. Someone's got to step up. Like what campaign did for Chris Paul. KD, I don't think any star like LeBron or KD deserves any scrutiny for not being able to win these games. He played 53 minutes in Game 7, being every minute. And in Game 5, all 48. And then in Game 6, he sat, I believe, 5 minutes. So he sat 5 minutes through 3 games total. He did everything that he could physically on the court. You got to have other guys play and step up. You can't win games by yourself. I'm not saying that's all Kevin Durant is the best in the world, which you could argue that.
He is.
Yeah. But it doesn't matter if you are the best in the world. You will not win a championship by yourself. And I think he might have discovered that in OKC. That's why he wanted to go join Golden State. But that's clearly the reason here. He couldn't do it alone. The Bucks were much more well organized. They were ready to play. And just like what you said with the Hawks, that's their type of team. That's why I think this series could be so great. Right. Because you got guys just playing together as units. You know who the stars are on the team. You know what guys take on the bigger roles. But there's always guys ready to play and step up. Game 7, Trae Young didn't play well. Who stepped up? Kevin Huerter. There's always someone filling in for these teams that are making their runs. Now this is a perfect opportunity to go towards the devil in Philadelphia right now, and Ben Simmons.
Oh,
That's a guy who doesn't know how to step up if you give him a ladder. He had 19 points in the final 3 games combined, not each, combined. Um, I will always just be baffled by that. I think my quick take, and I'll let you go off of this. I think you'll agree, but I can't consider Ben Simmons a star player in this league if he's not going to be able to be trusted to go out in the crunch time, in the big minutes, in the big games, and produce. He's basically in those clutch moments just a lockdown defender. I don't know what else his purpose is on the court.
I think the problem with Ben, there's a couple I have. I think the first one is obviously lack of a jump shot. Everyone talks about this. And Stephen A. Smith, he shows up again. He is apparently one jump shot away from being LeBron James. I disagree with that completely. I don't think he's going to be LeBron James, but therein lies the second problem. Ben Simmons is spoiled. Okay, Ben Simmons is spoiled obscene amounts of riches by media and high praise that he, all honesty, at this point does not deserve. Because coming out of high school, I remember I found him for the first time. And I was watching him. I'm like, wow, this guy is really good at driving the basketball and passing. And then all of a sudden, LeBron James. Wow, okay.
Yep.
So I guess that must have gotten into his head, and that he's the golden child of the NBA. Like, I'm Ben Simmons, I can do what I want. He kind of lollygags around. And then he goes in the playoffs and is just nowhere to be found. Okay. If there was a missing persons case, I think Ben Simmons would have to be the number one priority. As far as his future, the contract is obscene. I'm looking at it right now on my big screen computer behind me. He's going to be making $31 million the next season, and then it's going up. It'll go as high as 38.6 in the 24-25 season.
Wow.
Now, my thing is trade Ben Simmons, and there's only one place I see him going. That's Minnesota. Now, here's why I say Minnesota. They have D'Angelo Russell, right? They have Anthony Edwards. They have Malik Beasley, and they're a bad team that has a star player who is very close to starting to demand a trade to leave. I think we're going to start seeing cat trade rumors.
I agree with that.
Halfway towards the end of next year.
Yep.
If Minnesota and Philadelphia, both desperate teams, just swap D'Angelo for Ben, and Minnesota gives Philadelphia a pick, that might work in a way because Minnesota needs defense and they need a playmaker. I think Russell's kind of the odd man out there with just how much Edwards and Beasley and Towns chuck jump shots. And Philadelphia needs someone who can shoot the basketball and can create on the perimeter because, in all honesty, I love Joel Embiid. I think he might start demanding a trade soon. That could happen. And his contract's coming to an end quickly, much quicker than you think. And I think D'Angelo Russell can change the whole dynamic in the city of brotherly love. Now, the question with Ben is if he goes to Minnesota, is he going to be motivated to play? Because he has a motivation problem as well. Mm-hmm. Is he going to be engaged? Is he going to want to prove himself? I don't care how much money he's making. I think he might show up in the last year of his contract. That's who I think Ben Simmons might become. Shows up like Hassan Whiteside, shows up in the last year of a contract to get paid.
I like that idea. I like that offer. That we could speculate on this forever. I've got such a problem with Ben Simmons now that I didn't have until this series. I was always saying, because it's just he's still young, but there's a point when you say someone's still young when they have these expectations that it's kind of like, okay, well, time's running out. And I think that's just what's happened here in Philadelphia for him. I just never have seen a pro more scared to produce on his own, especially someone who is considered a star, like I said before. I think everyone will know the play. He spins off of Gallinari, and instead of taking probably a dunk over Trae Young, he passes it off because he doesn't want to get fouled to shoot free throws. It's just fear, and it's almost like what you would see out of a child playing who's not confident. I don't know how you can be a star in this league and not be confident at 2 feet away, or maybe from the free throw line if you want to stretch it there, obviously. But I was so on board with every year that the Philly would come up short. I was on board with saying, no, give him another year. Whether it was when they had Jimmy Butler, whether it was when I thought Tobias Harris would step up. And he didn't play great in that series either. But It's just he's not the problem. The clear cut problem is Ben Simmons. I don't think you can. I remember Dwight Howard said everyone's just got to back off, give him his space. But it's the modern NBA. If you do that, you're gonna get scrutinized for it. And when I say do that, I mean basically do nothing.
Literally.
um,
I think if I want to add one more point before we move on,
Yeah.
everyone needs to remember that Daryl Morey is a very abrasive human being. Okay, he dealt Capella away in Houston because the trade matched his math algorithm or whatever he uses, and he is prone to just destructive decision making in terms of trades. If he trades the whole roster and just rebuilds it strictly on statistics or analytics, whatever it is, don't be surprised if that happens. Okay, I just be aware of what can happen. Daryl Morey, of what he can do. I just wanted to bring that up.
And I'll finish with that. I almost really am intrigued by the idea of, again, it's just total speculation. No one really knows the future of Simmons yet. My bet would be he is out, but I would be intrigued to see him go to, as wild as it sounds, I would be intrigued to see him in Golden State. And it's basically because you are pairing the best shooter in the league to arguably the worst because he doesn't have the confidence to shoot. I know. I see your face. It's a wild thing. But it's an interesting one because in reality, if Simmons is not going to have the confidence to shoot the basketball, or if he never develops a shot, I don't know how he can play on a team without shooters around him. The Sixers have those shooters around him, right? There's no Steph Curry. There's Seth Curry, but there's no Steph. So it would be interesting to see Simmons be that main guy. Imagine Steph Curry never taking the ball up the court. Steph's just now score. He's a shooter, which of course he is. But it's just total speculation, wild thoughts. Who knows where he's going to go? So much craziness going on in the NBA. Bucks currently up 28-25 at the end of the first quarter. So that will be an interesting one to see how that unfolds. Maybe I'm wrong with my Hawks taking game 1 pick. We'll see. So lots of stuff to go in the NBA and lots of stuff to go here on the show. When we get back from break, we will talk with Mike Messina about the Islanders playing the Tampa Bay Lightning in Game 6. We will be right back here on One on One Nightly. Welcome back, everyone, to One on One Nightly here on this Wednesday evening. I'm Nick Fada, Tomaso, with me, along with Mike Messina, who is here to talk Islanders Lightning Game 6 of the NHL playoffs. Mike, how you doing? What do you got for us tonight?
Good, Nick. Good, Tom. Thanks for having me. Tampa Bay currently leads the Islanders right now 1-0, courtesy of a Braden Point goal. Braden Point is on an absolute tear right now over this playoffs. He is on a 9-game goal streak right now and just had the first one of the night so far. Has 14 this postseason, so not a great start to the Islanders. Not what they were looking for, getting going in the first period. They are now 18 games in a row, which is every single game they played this postseason without leading after the first period. So not a great stat to have if you're the Islanders. That's got to get fixed if they want to make it further in this tournament. If they win tonight, they have to come out game 7, win that first period. Obviously, it's a crucial period to have. You got to get the guys going. But good game so far. Tampa's down in shots 6-7 to the Islanders, but it's been a roughly physical game so far. Nikita Kucherov went out in 2 minutes into the first period. He took a run at Matt Barzal after that controversial cross-check last game, and was kind of favoring his left side of his body a little bit. So saw a little limp coming out of him. And then Matt Martin took a puck to the face as well. He went back to the locker room, probably got stitched up, got all fixed up, and he was back on the bench to end the period. So all good news there for Matt Martin. But Islanders need to come out of the second period absolutely on their toes and ready to play the game. They cannot let up another goal before they score, and we have to see where they can take it from there.
And Mike, you led basically right to my question now for you. I've noticed, so in this postseason, the Lightning are 11-1 when they've scored the first goal of the game, and when they haven't scored the first goal of the game, they're 0-4. So it's a clear trend that has been set by this team. And tonight, like you said, it's 1-0. They're up right now. Do you think the fate's going to be the same right now? Have there been any changes in the direction of the team for the Islanders? What are you seeing as far as adjustments that have been made so the Islanders can counter this attack from the Lightning?
Well, listen, when you give the best goaltender in the league a 1-0 lead going into any portion of the game, he's gonna 95% of the time shut the door on the other team. And that's exactly what Andrei Vasilevskiy is doing and has been doing. Look, it was an 8-0 game in game 5 of this series. And they sent out the exact same lineup they did in last game in game 6, which I'm not judging. I don't mind the move. They really had to do that to send out their best lineup, and they did. But their defense just needs to step it up. This game, they're playing very well so far, 6 shots on goal through 1 period. But last game, I believe it was like 16 or 17 through the first period, and that's unacceptable. And they're not going to win games like that. And so far, it's been a pretty close game between both teams. Both teams playing well, both teams not playing all that great as well. I don't know. I think it's going to come down to both goaltenders and what they can do coming forward, but I can't see Andrei Vasilevskiy really dropping anything off of what he already's done this season in this playoff. So I'm not sure what's going to be able to happen yet.
Mike, I just wanted to bring up, I mean, obviously Andre is like putting a walrus in net. I don't know how many holes you're going to find, put the puck past him, but I want to bring up Noah Dobson, who's the second-year defenseman for the Islanders. I think he's going to be a key because he's really been stepping it up this season. Do you see him kind of being a minion for Andre in goal? Like, obviously he can't do it by himself, but do you think Dobson's going to be the guy who is going to really, I guess, rile up that Islanders defense and say, hey, like, let's do this. And then he's going to just go out there and get the job done. Where do you see him fitting in tonight?
Yeah, he's paired up with Andy Green like he usually is. The only issue I see with him right now is he, out of all 6 of their defensemen right now, he has the least time on ice in this game and in game 4. So I'm not sure what the mindset is for Barry Trotz with playing Noah Dobson and getting him on the ice, but he can absolutely play a huge factor in this game and every series going forward, and just for the Islanders in general, next season, season after that. He can play a long-term role. He has to keep doing what he's doing. He's young. He's second year in the league, and he has improved, like you said. Not substantially like everyone expected him to, but he has improved. He's a defenseman. He's not going to be scoring 15, 20 goals a season. I believe this season he has 3. So as long as he can keep doing what he's doing, get that time on ice that he needs, give him the opportunity to get assists and stop big pucks, and just play his position like a defenseman's supposed to, I think he can be a huge help to this team going forward in seasons to come.
And Mike, so obviously, like you said, Vasilevsky, top goalie in the league. Lightning, reigning champs, they're the top dog. You got to get past them before you can win anything. So this, I guess now it's this game 6. It's do or die for the Islanders. Can you sense any sort of worries out there, any fear? Or is it just all in? Let's go take this game.
It's all in. Let's go take this game for the Islanders. But that's not how they wanted that period to end, and that's why I'm skeptical to say that the Islanders are going to be able to take this game. Given the Lightning, the reigning champs, the best goalie in the world, a 1-0 lead in a game 6 is a tough thing to do for your team, and especially in the Islanders situation, it's win or go home. So for them, it's a tough situation right now, but they are playing like they want to win this game so far. They're fast on the ice. They have that grit that shows that they want to win. It's been a very physical game. There was 13 hits or 15 hits within the first 13 minutes of the game. And that's a lot. And that's exactly how the Islanders wanted to come out and play, kind of overpower the Lightning and try and win the game that way. But if you're the Lightning and if you're Barry Trotz going into this intermission, you have to spark a fire under your guys right now. They have to come out ready to play, and they really have no time to spare. They have to be in it from the second that puck drops in the second period to the last whistle of the last period if they want to win this game and force a game 7.
Question I have for you, because Barry Trotz did say that there's no margin for error in game 6. And when your backs are against the wall, when you're fighting a 3-2 deficit, in any sport, you're going to be scrapping, clawing, fighting for your life pretty much. How do you see the Islanders playing the rest of this game out going into the second period? How do you think they need to perform? And how perfect of a game or close to perfect of a game do they need to play to really have a chance to force a game 7 against Tampa Bay?
It has to be all gas, no break from here on out. They can't slow down. Hopefully all their guys can stay healthy. Obviously, Matt Martin went out, took a puck to the face, but he's all good now, so there's no issues. But they have to stay healthy, and they really have to just push until that very last whistle. They need to get pucks on net. 7 shots in the first period really isn't a lot at all. I think this might be the lowest they've had this series. So that definitely needs to change going forward. They need to take every opportunity they can to shoot the puck, give themselves a chance for a rebound, for a deflection that can go into the net. They have to get those chances in order to score, and they really haven't gotten too many this far.
And Mike, my final question for you now. Game 5 obviously was an annihilation for the Lightning. 8-0 W in Game 5. Take this 3-2 lead. Obviously, that's going to provide some sort of spark for the Islanders here to kind of come out and say, we're back home. We're not getting destroyed like we just did again. We got to fight for our lives, frankly, in elimination to come back and force a Game 7. Now the question part, we get to a Game 7 in this series. Who do you got?
I've been saying this since me, Chris Hennessy, and Tyler Mooney have done our predictions on 5-on-3. I have no reason to go against the defending champions. I don't do that in any sport. I have the Lightning. I actually had the Colorado Avalanche beating the Lightning in the Stanley Cup Finals, which obviously the Colorado Avalanche is now out. So I'm still riding Tampa Bay. I think they're a much better team than the Islanders. They have the superstars that the Islanders don't have with Steven Stamkos and Nikita Kucherov. And like we said probably 10 times already, the best goalie in the world, Andrei Vasilevsky. And I don't think the Islanders are going to have what it takes to really win a Game 7 or necessarily a Game 6 either. So I'm rolling with Islanders all the way through, even no matter who wins the Vegas-Canadian series. I think Tampa Bay has the best shot to go back-to-back this year.
Now, Mike, one last question for me. This is all indications at this point. This is very well, or could be the last game in the Nassau Coliseum. Do you think that's going to be lingering on the minds, of course, of Islanders fans, but how much do you think that lingers on the minds of the Islanders players? Do you think that, hey, let's win this for the fans. Let's give the Coliseum another chance to live another day. Do you think that's on their minds to try and pull this one out? Or is that just, this is all strategy. We got to put our focus on the ice?
I definitely think it's on the fans' mind for sure. let's take Islander fans and diehard Islander fans for example, going to every game, living on the island and just going to as many games as possible. That's going to mean so much to them. And from a player's perspective, though, I don't really think it's even on their mind. Yes, of course, they want to win for their fans and they want to win at their home ice, but they've dealt with this in 2015 when they had to split the time between the Coliseum and the Barclays Center. So I really don't think that's going to play too much of a factor in their performance, because I just think they have a strategy they have to work at and listen to, and they have a game to play, and they can't really worry about where they're playing or where they're going to be playing next season. So no, I don't think that's on their mind, but I do think they would love to get a win and not leave the Nassau Coliseum. It's special to everyone in the organization. It's special to the fans and their families. So I don't think it's on their mind, but I'm sure they would love to come out of this game with a win.
All right, that was Mike Messina with our Islanders Lightning coverage, Game 6 of the NHL Conference Playoffs. Mike, thank you for joining us. When we get back, we're heading right into baseball, Mets, Yanks, and more. Stay tuned. Welcome back, everybody, to One on One Nightly here at WFUV Sports. I'm Nick Feda with Thomas Aiello at my side. We're heading over to the Boogie Down Bronx, talking about the Yanks here. They are currently playing the Kansas City Royals. They are tied 2-2 at the stadium. I really think it's hard to say each game they play now doesn't mean just so much, because the Yanks have underwhelmed this year with they're underwhelmed and underachieved. They had much higher expectations, obviously. They're sitting at 4 games above 500, 38-34. Not exactly where fans or their franchise would want to see them right now. I point towards the inconsistency of the lineup as a whole, but we can dive into that more deeply in a few. But Thomas, I want to think your initial thoughts right now on the state of the Yankees, whether it's whether it's their pitching, whether it's their hitting. What is their number one, I guess, concern to get going here for the second half of the season?
I think the problem that the Yankees have is, I mean, you mentioned the inconsistency. I think the Yankees have become a troller coaster. They're just trolling everybody. They're like, oh, we're not actually like a bad team. We're just trolling you. Like, they're kind of messing with everybody. But I think there's reason to concern, because of the injuries, and that just has been killing them for like, what is it, like 5 or 6 years now.
Yeah.
The second problem that I have is they tried too hard to just hit home runs every time. You don't have to do that every time. Okay. You got to play hit and run baseball, sack flies, squeeze, bunts, safety squeezes, stealing. And the Yankees don't do pretty much any of that. Maybe sacrifice flies every here and there, but they don't really do much of that. And the other issue is that the depth chart in terms of the outfield is so incredibly thin on the offensive and the defensive side that it's hard to really produce from that part of the team. And I mean, you have Aaron Judge, who's a phenomenal bat. He's going to probably make the All-Star game, batting over 280 on the year. He's got almost 15 home runs, and I mean, he can't be the only outfielder doing stuff. I mean, Miguel Andujar went on a nice little hit streak. Clinton Frazier, who everyone was kind of, I don't want to say forcing, more like glorifying as the best ninth hitter in baseball. And that has just been anything but that. He has been nowhere to be seen this past month and a half. And I think there's a good chance he's going to run into some troubles staying on this roster. Rougned Odor, you paid cash to get him. He hasn't been good at all. I mean, he's got some good moments. I'll give him that, but I don't know if he's actually a good baseball player. And then Luke Voigt, I mean, he came back. That was great. He had the home run on the first pitch last night. He had a triple with the help of some fans. But he's, you got to see how much you get out of him. And DJ LeMahieu has been the mainstay and kind of the controller of the Yankees lineup. Where he goes, they go, and he's kind of hit a wall. I think the machine's having a malfunction. And the last thing I'll point to is bringing in Jameson Taillon and not calling up Domingo Germán or Luis Medina by now. Jameson Taillon has been egregious, if I'm going to be nice. Okay. I have other choice words, but I'm not going to say it. He has been not good at all for the Yankees. I thought this has been a waste of an acquisition for them. I understand why they do it, because Garrett Cole, like, they're buddies. So you do that to make the ace happy. I understand in theory, but Taillon just can't do anything, right? And I think we'll give him a break. He is adjusting to a new motion, a new throwing motion. He used to when he used to pitch, he used to wind all the way back up like this, like a slingshot. Now it's more discreet, much shorter motion. It's not as tough on his elbow as the other one was. But I think also pitching in Yankee Stadium has just such expectations that you put on yourself. It's very hard to pitch in Yankee Stadium and be successful pitching in Yankee Stadium. So, I mean, those are just some of the things I see. I know people have just been pointing that out for months now. Are they going to turn the roller coaster around into an actual machine? I have no idea. It's right now it's a roller coaster. That's what they are.
Yeah, you've always got these terms that I think, where do you come up with it? And somehow they work. They describe a team very, very well in a unique way, and that's what I think is awesome. But I've always had this problem with the Yanks since they last won their title in 2009. It's the inconsistency, but if you want to change the term from inconsistent, it's more so boom or bust with the guys on this team. It's guys who are going to go long or they're going to do nothing. Boom as in the homer, or bust as in a ground out or a strikeout, or we leave guys stranded on base for as long as I can remember. There hasn't been a change really in I guess the Yankee or the orientation of how the Yanks are built. I mean, obviously LeMahieu, like you said, the machine, it malfunctioned or something. He's hitting 263 right now. Not terrible, but compared to what he has done in the past few years for us, MVP caliber stuff, This is not it. This is not what we were expecting. This is not what we were expecting, especially when the Yanks paid him. You look at the highest batting average on the team is Aaron Judge. He's batting 283. Then you got Urshela 273. You got a couple of guys batting in the low 200s. Rougned Odor, like you said, I don't trust him as a real.
I think he has good heart. I'll give him.
Well, he's clearly got a lot in him, energy wise. all I think of is the Bautista punch with him, but that's what we brought over. He shaved for the Yankees, so that's one thing
Oh
too.
God.
But he's hitting 193, so he's not a real reliable option. But you can even look at games where the Yankees will score 3 runs and they'll lose 5-3 because their 3 runs came off of 3 solo shots. Maybe a guy works a walk, or maybe you get a base hit, maybe you bunt, move a guy over, you get another base hit. They don't play that small ball, and that's why I think that their team mesh is not there right now. I know Aaron Boone said these guys aren't giving up. Of course they're not giving up. Who would this early in the season? But it's just not 38 and 34 is not where I think anyone was really expecting to see the Yanks this year. Again, the injuries have been killer. Losing Kluber, I think, was arguably the biggest blow to this team because I think his first couple games he struggled a bit, but he had been very solid, just a reliable starter to go out there for the Yankees after Cole. But now he's obviously out. You got to call guys up. Michael King pitched tonight. Like you said, you like him more as a reliever. I agree with that. I see him starting on the bump. I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on here? So you have to have guys, like I said in the NBA segment, step up. And sometimes I think baseball is an even harder sport to do that than any, because a lot of times you're just coming off of doing nothing. You look at Hicks is injured, so the outfield has to be, it's limping, like you said. I just don't know where the Yanks can really go. They need some sort of spark from within. There's nothing going to come from the outside. They're not going to make a trade for a big player. They're not going to call up a prospect. At least I don't think so. I don't really know what the answer for these guys is, except they got to dig in deep and say, all right, this is probably the best year they've had, probably the best chance, they've had in a while to make it out of the American League. And they're just right now looking like they have no business even being in that conversation. So I want to see just a little more heart and I guess maybe some anger almost too out of these guys to play and frustration to mold together as a team, because it's just not, whether you're a fan of the Yanks or not, it's not, they don't play a lot of games they play are just not great baseball. And I also, another point I love, real quick point, I love Gardy. I always will, forever Yankee, but I wasn't expecting him to be playing as much as he is this year. I didn't think we would need the guy like this. We're trying to, that's I think the thing that kind of needs to change. He should be more of just a locker room guy now. But unfortunately, injuries, guys needing to play different places, that's where we need him. So it's just a lot of, again, bad timing with injuries, guys just not really performing how they're supposed to. It's just real tough for me to I guess point out a specific way where these guys can rally as a team, because they have to find it from within themselves.
I think something that Yankee fans have kind of forgotten over the years, now that analytics have just invaded sports, and to a tolerable degree, I guess, I have to accept them in baseball, because baseball has always been a mathematical sport. I think spin rate is a good stat. I don't understand most of them, but spin rate, I think, is a good one. I thought, the defensive measurements that they use make sense now. I'm starting to see those a little bit, but I think the 3 true outcomes are so ridiculous. And when you stack the Yankees lineup how it is, let me also mention that everyone's a right-handed power hitter in a stadium that has been specifically designed for Babe Ruth, who was a lefty who mashed a zillion home runs.
Yep.
Probably the greatest player of all time that's not named Barry Bonds. You got to go off of that. You have to see what's successful. And you look at how the Yankees have been as a team for years. It's switch hitters, southpaws. I mean, you have exceptions with Jeter, Rodriguez, Judge. Okay, there's exceptions to that.
Those are legends of the game, though. That's besides.
Right. But the team around them has to be switch hitters and southpaws that can actually field a baseball. Okay, the Gleyber Torres shortstop experiment should have been over by the time last season ended. I don't know why they're still doing that. That's not my first issue. The second one is people. I see this on Twitter, and I do not like Twitter. I'm starting to not like it. Okay, those people need to be fired. They're entertaining the idea of Giancarlo Stanton going out into the outfield. You're going to tell me the guy who can't run, he can't run at all.
He'll get injured if he goes out there.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. You said it. You finally said it. He's going to get hurt, and he's one of the best bats on this team.
Yeah.
Number 3, Gary Sanchez. I know he's gotten a lot better this year. He had a miserable start. He looked like a snowy owl in Florida. He was just lost, okay? He should not be a catcher. He really shouldn't be a catcher. I think that's a lot of pressure on him to be the catcher for the Yankees. That's a lot of pressure really for anyone. And I think Sanchez would really excel as the DH. And you kind of take some pressure off of his shoulders because he's worrying about the field and sometimes he just doesn't catch the ball. I think he would be good as a DH. And then I think you can go out and do a catcher platoon. The Yankees, for the most part, I guess you can say have done it, with the exception of Elston Howard, who was a phenomenal catcher in his day. Jorge Posada, who wasn't a superstar catcher, but he was one of the consistent ones, and they always had Jose Molina behind him. Kyle Higashioka, I guess, like, is now kind of part of that platoon thing with the battery with Cole. So I think that's the other thing they have to do. And the last thing they need is to move Gleyber Torres to second base and get an actual shortstop. Please, for the love of God. I am begging. I'm praying that whoever is listening, please bring back a Didi Gregorius, a defensive-minded shortstop who he just so happened to hit as a lefty, okay? Like, it's just a coincidence. Find someone like that. That will solve not every problem, but it solves some things. It'll solve a few things. It'll make them not much of a roller coaster as they've been.
Yeah, I think it's funny with Gleyber, as you said. You know, it's very hard, I guess, for Yankees fans or even baseball fans as a whole to look at the shortstop position in New York and not think, oh, Derek Jeter. Just the level of excellence that guy brought, it's a high standard to live up to. I remember when the Yanks brought in Didi, I was like, who is this guy? And he played. He performed. He was a very reliable shortstop. He played well for us in the years he was here. Gleyber, yeah, sure, for a few years. His bat has been not there this year, but it had shown up in his younger years, in his first few years in the league. But I've never seen the guy field worse than he has this year. I look at the series the Yanks got swept by the Tigers, first time in 21 years that happened, over Memorial Day weekend. Excuse me. They hit a ground ball, the Tigers, to Gleyber short, under his glove, and they let 2 runs score off of it because it's 2 outs. You know, it's just that type of stuff. I'm like, it's not the I think it might be bold to say the culture of the Yankees, but wake up a little. You know, it looked like they were just dragging, and that's where when they get inconsistent, like we talked about, they just drag and they don't know how to get themselves out of the mud. And that's where you look when they were. I was baffled when I saw the record was below 500 at some point. So I was like, well, this Yankee team is supposed to be a star-studded team, no question. But it's not there. I mean, we've talked so many times about the future. I really think, you know, this group has been together now 3, 4, even 5 years. The original core guys back to 2016, and nothing really coming out of it. So it's tough to decide. I almost think I just want them to maybe rebuild, but where do you go from there? You know, it's a tough situation because these guys are just not looking like the team we're supposed to see. So hopefully they can step up a little bit here. The game currently still underway, 2-2, going into the 7th inning stretch, bottom of the 7th. We've got Ryan Gregoire joining us very, very shortly to talk. He is live there at the stadium. Hopefully we get some good insight from him. Should be here in a second, but while we wait, here we go. Ryan, you hear us?
Hi, Ryan.
What's up, guys? How you guys doing today?
Great, man. How are you?
You know, going well. This game, it's 2-2 right now, still up for grabs. Had a good time today. You know, we'll see what happens, but yeah, I'm doing well.
That's good. You know, we always like to hear that you're doing well, Ryan. Now, Ryan, I refer to you as Professor Gregoire. Now, no one knows the Yankees better than you do. So I need to ask you this question. This is a very important question. What is wrong with Clint Frazier and Gleyber Torres? Can you provide some kind of answer, please? I need to know, please.
I mean, yeah, no, I can try my best to answer the question, but it's a pretty loaded one. Clint Frazier, today he's had a nice game. He had the 2-run double, really the only offense so far for the Yankees. But yeah, he's been a huge liability this year. I think going into today, he was tied for like the 3rd lowest WAR in all of baseball. He's batting 187, and his defense from last year, if you remember, he was a Gold Glove candidate. That's gone out the window. He's been shaky in left and right wherever they throw him. So yeah, that's certainly been one of the bigger issues. And the only reason that I'm more concerned with Gleyber Torres is because I think that corner outfield position will be easier for the Yankees to fill, whether it's a deadline, whether it's you let Miguel Andujar get some more reps. Because I think while he struggled a little bit recently, he is a good hitter, and we know that will come. But Gleyber Torres, too, you mentioned, I think that, like, him or DJ LeMahieu particularly Torres, I think is the biggest disappointment for the Yankees this year. He's in a huge slump right now. I think Gleyber Torres like 2 for his last 35. He just struck out on a pitch that was about a foot out of the zone. So clearly he's uncomfortable. And that power that we saw those first few years in the league completely out the door. They showed a graphic on the game, the TV today, where it was from 18 to 19, his first 2 years in the league, he had like the 23rd highest slugging percentage in the year. Last 2 years, 6th lowest. So that power that he had is completely gone. He's cut down his K rate. And I think, I'm not the hitting coach, obviously. Marcus Ames talked about, before the game, how they're trying to fix his lower end of the swing. But, if you look at this from he's cutting his K rate down, he's hitting the ball on the ground more. It seems like that was kind of the trade-off for power. But the issue is that trade-off's not worth it because the contact he makes is not solid. His hard hit rate is down. His exit velo, he's bottom 5% in all of baseball. So, it's not worth the trade-off here when it comes to Gleyber Torres. I think you'd rather, if you're the Yankees, him to strike out more if it meant that power that was there those first few years was still here. So I think that's where you look at those two issues, and it really has hurt the Yankees this year because those are two guys you relied on. Obviously, Gleyber Torres has made some all-star teams. Clint Frazier, following that 2020, looked like he was primed to make a jump. And when they both take huge steps back, along with the injuries and DJ LeMahieu and other things, that's been the reason this offense has been so lackluster to start this year.
And Ryan, I guess so we've been stumped on this for so far in this segment of the Yanks. I think you might be stumped as well, but maybe you got a better idea than us. Why can't the Yanks break out of this inconsistent season? Frankly, I would say slump, but it's the season. The entirety of the year, they've been extremely inconsistent. What's the number one issue? I guess maybe you're even seeing something live now. But what would you say is really the number one reason as to why this team has been so consistent through the year?
100%. And it is something we're seeing right now. It's with the runners in scoring position. They're not able to get the big hits. Yesterday, I know our producer, shout out Alex, he covered the game. He saw it. I was a fan. I saw it as well. I think they went 0 for 10 with runners in scoring position yesterday. They had a ton of chances to capitalize. They didn't do so. And tonight, while Clint Frazier did get that 2-run double, they've had a ton of other chances. DJ LeMahieu didn't get it done with the bases loaded. Neither did Rougned Odor. I think they're batting .212, 28th in the MLB going into today with runners in scoring position, with guys on base. So when you're not able to situationally hit, and when your guys' power across the board is down, right? Gleyber Torres, as I mentioned, DJ LeMahieu's power, complete non-factor. It's going to build up, and I think that's when you look at it. They've had these games like yesterday where you have a lead throughout, but you're not able to have the big inning. We've seen it all year. They're not able to break away, have a 5-6 run inning, string a ton of hits together. And when that happens, the bullpen has to pitch a perfect game. And it's the reason they're above 500 right now because the bullpen has been so good. But Nick, to what you said, they've been so inconsistent because you're not having all the pieces of fundamental baseball work at once, right? When the bullpen's on, you don't get it from your starters. When the starters are on, sometimes your bullpen has an off night like yesterday with Jonathan Loaiziga. And then when your lineup on top of that is very inconsistent, it makes for an inconsistent baseball team, which is what we've seen. Now you hope I know they lost yesterday, but they were in a little bit of a hot stretch, 5 of 6. You hope that is a sign of things to turn around, but you just don't know. And, it's hard because like every time I'm on a show and I have to talk about the Yankees, it's this clear issue and I always bring it up, but there's no one answer that will just, snap your fingers and everything's all better. It's an underlying problem with the organization. A ton of guys need to get better. And then, you can't there's no one answer. And I think that's a frustrating thing here, Nick.
Ryan, I just want to ask you one more question before you get out of here. The Yankees look very overly relaxed when Cole is pitching. I don't know if you noticed this too, but they just don't seem to care as much. How much do you think this concerns you with how the season's been playing out, and do you expect this to carry on?
I mean, it's not one of this team has a lot of concerns right now. It's not one of the top ones. I think they're 8 and, to your point, 8-7 in his 15 starts, and he's a 2.3 ERA, right? So obviously that needs to change. He's doing his job on the mound. The offense just isn't hitting. I went through those 7 losses. It was like 2-2, 2-2, 2, 3-4, or the amount of runs they're scoring. So obviously, when you're not hitting for your starter, that's going to happen. You talked about if you're relaxed because you know that your ace is going to deal. We've seen this kind of similar thing with the Mets and Jacob deGrom, where they've struggled in his starts. And I don't know if it's a psychological thing like that. It could just be, situational circumstances here. But yeah, I know to your point, it's a weird little thing to start this year. You hope that they can kind of flip that around because you need every 5th day when Garrett Cole is on his A game, which he usually is, you need to win that game, right? You need to beat the Royals at home yesterday with Garrett Cole going 7 innings and only giving up 2 runs. So, yeah, 100%. I know what you're talking about. But, yeah, this team has bigger issues right now. We'll see if the bullpen is able to keep this one at bay, let the offense finally wake up. But, yeah, so that's what's going on right now in the Yankee world.
All right, Ryan, thank you very much. You can get back to work over there at the stadium. Hopefully the Yanks can pull out a W here.
Yep, have a good one, guys.
Thanks, man. You too. All right, so we will swing now over to Citi Field with the Mets. They are currently playing the Atlanta Braves. I really don't know with the Mets either. They have almost a very similar problem to the Yankees, except they're just not as inconsistent. Their offense doesn't show up in games. Obviously, they have the best player in baseball, I think unanimously, in Jacob deGrom. He pitches, it's almost like it's a guaranteed W. But I guess, Thomas, I don't know where my question for you is if DeGrom, and he's had his scares. This is my concern with him. He's had his scares where he's got to come out of games early. He pitches 4 innings or 5 innings and then needs to rest. He's feeling tightness or something. Then he'll come back and pitch, right? He's also maybe hitting a lot. And I know Freddie Freeman mentioned focus on pitching every 5th day. Don't worry about hitting. The game needs you. But anyway, my concern is the Mets, if DeGrom goes down for, say, even 15-day TL, he misses 3 scheduled starts, I could see them slumping and losing 10 out of their next 15 games because they don't have him to really carry and piggyback this team with him through 6-7 innings of shutout baseball.
I do think you're right in that sense. And about DeGrom's hitting, I'm waiting for Gary Cohen to go, DeGrom, it's out of here. It's out of here. I'm waiting for that. I think that's just going to be one heck of a moment. I'm really excited if it does happen. But to your point about DeGrom missing time, I mean, this is for every player in any sport, the best player in the world, what have you. That's going to hurt you a lot. Now, for the Mets, I think this is a little not as bad because they do have some helpers for him. Taijuan Walker, who was just kind of, no one wanted him. He had a sub-2 ERA after he was traded last year. So I don't know why no one picked him up. And he's been really good for the Mets. He might make the All-Star team. Marcus Stroman, who, I mean, he got hurt again. He came out after 1 inning in his last start, but he's been very good. So, I mean, it's not like this rotation is just as thin as it used to be. You know, you've got some legitimate arms back there. I don't know. I mean, Freddie Freeman is right. DeGrom's got to stop trying to hit. And I know that he can do everything, like the line drive catch the other day, and he just bats and runs like it's a joke. But you got to stay healthy. The Mets need you to pitch, and they need you to pitch really well because as improved as they have become, and we know that like other than Lindor, they didn't go for the big name, Trevor Bauers. They're probably not going to go for Trevor Story. You know, those big names like that last year and maybe this year. They went for like Kevin Pillar's, Jonathan VR, James McCann, you know, these smaller, under the radar-ish kind of signings. Taijuan Walker is another one. And the resurgence of the death trumpets of Edwin Diaz, who just I love watching him pitch. And the song he walks into is on my music playlist now. I listen to it every day. I think that's it. They've fixed a lot of problems, but if they're going to really want to run the National League East, you know, you got to get more bats. I mean, Pete Alonso's got to step up. Michael Conforto, who just came back, he's been okay today. Had a walk, he produced a run. Dom Smith, who is kind of an in-between sort of hitter where he can hit for power and he can hit for good contact. He can drive in runs and maybe sometimes get you extra bases. So I'm not worried too much about him. But Pete Alonso is the other big bat. And I just talked about that. He has to wake up. I don't know where he's been. I mean, the polar bear he hasn't been a polar bear. He's just been more of like a iguana, I guess, in the hot sun. He's kind of chugging along slowly. He's got to get back to the home run slinger, the home run king that he was in his rookie year. And the Mets really need him to produce. It's a glaring concern. And look, I'm not a Mets hater as a Yankees supporter. I don't hate them. You know, I like DeGrom. I like Lindor. They have a fun little team, but I think Luis Rojas is also, like Boone, a lousy manager, and that's part of it. But the injuries are just cooks them.
And then Thomas, one last thing here in the MLB, I think it's such a prevalent issue that we have to talk about it. And I'll point to Max Scherzer being the prime example of this. I don't know if embarrassment is the right word or if it's just the league needs to set better standards or the substance of abuse, even if there are, I don't know what goes on. And frankly, no one will ever know. The pitchers will do what they want. I think, unless there is a specific rule that is established for him to stop. You know, it's too lackadaisical in MLB these days. For those of you that don't know, Max Scherzer basically took off his clothes to say, I don't have anything on me, to the umpires. I don't have anything. Does this make you happy? Almost like in your face to the MLB, saying this is ridiculous, which I wholeheartedly believe it is. You know, substance abuse, yes, that should not be a thing in the league, but make it clear the rules, make it cut, have them get tested. Like, you know, you've never seen as much of an issue as it's been this year, maybe because it's been talked about more, but I'm not happy with the league for how it's handled because, and you know, if I'm Max Scherzer, I love that reaction. I love what he did, and I think it's going to resonate and stand out because it's just not, I don't think it's fair to the pitchers, even if there are some guys out there who are doing the wrong thing. You know, I think they'll get caught the right way. It's karma in a way. But yeah, I want to hear, yeah, what are you thinking on this? Because for me, it's just, it takes away, I guess, the integrity of baseball. Trying to catch guys for maybe not even doing something. Like,
right. Producer Alex has a graphic for us to see. And credit to John Boy and John Boy Media for putting these out on their Instagram. And I thought these were just like some of the funniest pictures. We got Max Scherzer. He's getting his head rubbed by the umpires mid-game for checking for sweat. And he goes, I got sweat. What do you want? And I thought that was – and then Freddie Peralta gets his glove taken away because it's like too light of a color. And then the craziest one was Sergio Romo of the Athletics. just pulling his pants down. I mean, he must be pulling a Magic Mike impersonation. It was just so bizarre, like what happened. And you know what? I'll credit to the players for just sticking it to Rob Manfred for being the clown that he is. This guy just like, oh, what is this rule? Like, we got no time for you to go massage Max Scherzer's head or clean Sergio Romo's belt. And then Freddie Peralta's glove is too bright for your 100-year-old eyes as umpires. I mean, come on. What are we doing here? They look so ridiculous doing this. They look so crazy. I think the wildest part is that Tyler Glasnow, who was very outspoken about this issue in his press conference, said, your favorite pitcher uses substances for years. Like, this is going on for years. You can't not have something to grip the baseball. I don't care how big of hands, how clammy they might get during games. You need something to grip it. And you can't just allow this to happen to the players, let alone make this change in the middle of the damn season and then force everyone to adjust. You do this when the season's over. Let it play out. If you don't want this to happen, you shouldn't have not juiced the baseball. You should have left the baseball how it was. Don't deaden it. That's going to make it even harder for just things to happen, like hitting and excitement. Everyone comes to see home runs and offense. That's what puts fans in the stands, right? We can agree on that?
Yeah. Unless you're Jacob deGrom.
Pitching defense, that wins you World Series. There's no question about that. But don't make it impossible for the pitchers to the point where everyone's going to get hurt. And then you pull like a dance party on the mound, and then it becomes a massage session. What the hell? What are we doing in baseball? What is going on? Rob Manfred is a soup brain. I think he needs to fire himself. I don't care who you replace. Replace me or you. Put me in that position. Producer Alex, you can join us as well. We can be the first 3-person commissioner of baseball. We can fix it in 5 minutes. I don't know why. I can't, Nick.
You're getting worked up.
My God, it makes me so mad. It makes me so mad.
For me, I think it's a simple statement that I think most people can agree on. The old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right.
You know, America's pastime for a reason. I can't think of one thing that's wrong in baseball. Honestly, the more recent rule they've added, extra inning, runner on second base. What's the point in that? You know, now you're changing the game again. I don't understand. It's like what you said. What are we doing? And that's the least of my worries when the fact that pitchers literally got to prove a point, take their clothes off on the mound and say, look, see, I'm fine. Nope, nothing. And what you said with Glasnow, he's right. You know, the pitchers are going to use what they need to use. And if you want to make a rule, MLB, okay, make a rule around them. Work with your players. Work with the player association. You know, it's not enough communication, I think, and that's why there's a lot of Rob Manfred slander. I know coming from you for sure, but that's why that's why a lot of players in the MLB, especially the pitchers who are getting checked like this, are not happy. You know, it's not right, and I think like you said, I think they should wait till the end of the season to fix it. But the problem is I just don't think they can let it go. And that's where we'll have the issues for the rest of the season.
I just wanted to add this. I understand the spider tack, and I know someone that has spider tack. They bought a jar, and it like you can't pull your hands apart. I put some on my hands, and I was like doing this for 5 minutes. It was just we had to get like boiling hot water. Well, it wasn't like all the way boiling, but it was hot enough to where like it could melt off. Like that's how sticky that stuff is. I understand like the spider tack, the pine tar thing, whatever it is. At least allow rosin and sunscreen. Like that's like the bare minimum. They need something. You can't give them nothing.
Yep.
Because then everyone's going to get hurt, and we're already kind of seeing that. Jack Flaherty, he got hit in the side, but you can say like Cole's spin rate has dropped. Corbin Burns, Brandon Woodruff, their spin rates have dropped quite a bit. John Means, I know, is heavily reliant on breaking balls and changeups and things like that. Shout out to Jackson Heil, who's an Orioles fan who worked at FUV. So sorry, Jackson. But like it's guys like that, they're going to get exposed. And now people are kind of stopping. And I guess Scherzer's the exception because he's just that good. Yeah, the spin rate did drop. I looked at the baseball savant or the statistic it was, and he dropped quite a bit. I think it was over 10% on his spin rate. But he really doesn't need it because he's just that good, okay? He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's got a World Series already. He's multiple All-Star games, a Cy Young. He doesn't need it. But like, again, you can't give him nothing, okay? I understand the spider tack. That's crazy. That stuff is just wildly sticky for no reason. But give him something. Like, come on. You can't give him nothing.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a problem that's not going to be solved for a bit. It's going to take a lot of time and effort from the league, from the players, but, it's got to be solved. So with that, we will go towards a break. Our final segment coming up as we approach 10 o'clock here. We'll talk NBA draft lottery, what we're thinking there, and some news with the Boston Celtics yet again, coaching hiring. So we will be right back to talk that. We're back here, close to 10 o'clock on One Nightly. I'm Nick Feda with Thomas Aiello. Breaking news for the Celtics: Ime Udoka is their head coach. Tom, I think this is a great signing for them, and here's why. Boston's a big franchise. They're a team who is expected to always win, and they have in the past. But they've struggled. Brad Stevens, that era is over. He reached his ceiling. It was evident. And I think with this hire of Udoka, it's good for two reasons. One, he's a low-radar, low-profile name. He's been around the league coaching, but he's never been, a star. He wasn't a star player in the league. He played, I think, 314 games was the stat. I saw it today. So it's not like it's a Nash hire or a Jason Kidd hire where, you hire one of these big guys, big names, and you expect just right away, result. And I'm sure he will have high expectations when he starts with Boston next season. But the experience he has is with none other than Greg Popovich. He was an assistant with the Spurs from 2012 to 2019. I think, how else does it get better than that? You're learning under so many guys. Mike Budenholzer learned under Pop. It's guys that are just taking that experience in and now being able to put it on their own use. So I'm hoping Udoka can kind of do that and bring some sort of, not that I really want to see the Celtics succeed as a Knicks fan, but I think Udoka being there can now change and maybe rejuvenize the culture in Boston because he's just a new, unfamiliar face.
I wholeheartedly agree with that statement. I think Udoka has been a very gentleman of a coach, I guess is the term I'm going to use, because he's more of like he's not a in-your-face structure Thibodeau, Popovich type of coach. A little bit more lax, but understands when he has to push guys. And as far as expectations go for Ime, look, he's a defensive-minded coach. That's no surprise coming from the Popovich tree. Okay, him, Pat Riley, that tree is all defense. That's their thing. But what I really wanted to see from Ime is how much, can you really fix a team when it's probably going to go through a humongous turnover this upcoming offseason, okay? So there's a lot of money coming off the books. Well, not a lot of money, but a lot of money that could come off the books for Boston. You got Tristan Thompson. He's going to be expiring. What do you do with Marcus Smart expiring? Evan Fournier, do you pay him? Do you let him walk? Do you sign and trade? They already got rid of Kemba, so now Horford's back. So we're going to see how that goes. And I think for Udoka, just coach. Don't even think about going out trying to win the whole thing. I wouldn't say that the roster's ready for that yet. I mean, they did make 2 trips to the conference finals, but I think we can both agree first time they weren't ready. That was a massive overachieve. And I think the second time was the bubble. And again, I said this earlier in the show, I don't really count it because a lot of things were skewed and people you thought were good were actually they're back to being terrible now with fans back. So there's a lot of stuff, but I didn't think they were going to beat Miami. And Kemba Walker has a playoff problem, unfortunately. So it was kind of the Tatum and Brown show. And that's what it's going to be for the next 7 or so years, or how it should be at least. But Brown's coming off of an injury, Horford brings a lot of stuff back. That's good. So now Ime's got something. You got Tatum, who's one of the best scorers in basketball. Jaylen Brown, who has been an unsung hero forever now, and he finally got recognition making an all-star game. But how is he coming back following his injury? Who's going to be the point guard? See, now that's where it really comes down to. Who's going to be the point guard? And are you going to be able to play defense? This Boston team, outside of Horford and Smart, I don't know. I mean, Tatum, when he wants to, we know Brown can play defense. The rest of this roster, I mean, Peyton Pritchard's not really a defensive-minded player. Tristan Thompson, I can't tell with him because he's just such a ferocious rebounder. Yeah. And then on defense, he just, I don't know. I can't really tell with him anymore. He's probably okay. You got Aaron Nesmith, who's more of a set shooter. And who else are they going to bring in? I mean, I don't know. Grant Williams isn't really much of anything. Robert Williams, the Time Lord, shout out to him. He's actually very good, so I could see him getting some minutes. But look, I don't know. It's up in the air. You can convince me, like the Sixers and the Nets, you can convince me of anything for the Celtics at this point. Anything can happen with them. I would think my guess here is that they're going to try and move someone. I'm going to think it's Smart because he probably has the most value that you can move that doesn't kill your team. And maybe you get a pick out of that. Maybe you get like an okay player, young player. I don't know. You could do a lot of things. There's a lot of things Brad Stevens, now team president, can do. But for Ime, just go out and coach. Don't even think about the championship. Just go out and coach and see what you have with him. That's where I leave it for them.
Yeah, I think if you make a trade this year, I almost am curious to see if this team, one more year with the new coach, could do something. They had everyone had setbacks this year, but the Celtics were hit so hard with Brown getting hurt at the end of the season. Tatum had COVID, was out for a while. Marcus Smart was also hurt for a while. Those are really their, I wouldn't call it a big three because I don't think Marcus
that's their nucleus.
Has that type of talent. But yeah, it's the nucleus. Perfect word for it. So I'm curious to see maybe they get one more year under a new coach, see what happens. Because again, Tatum and Brown, so young. They're only supposed to get better from here. I guess, yeah, Smart is really the only guy you could trade. But then my question is, I think the only place that's logical for him to go is a contender.
Right.
Contenders need 3 and D type players, and that's kind of what, more so D than the 3, but that's what Smart is. So my concern is, where do you get out of a contender, a pick for the future? What is it? But I'm interested in seeing if they can go another year, because I think they have the potential to get there, because we saw the greatness that Tatum has in him. 50 points against Durant and the Nets. Obviously, they lost in 5, but no, Jaylen Brown was killer. So I would be interested to see what that team can do one more year. That's my hope, because under a new coach, you never know what's going to happen. Look at the Knicks.
Yeah, literally. Like, the Knicks are the prime example of that. But going back to, like, moving Marcus Smart, he's such, like, I want to say a weird player in the sense that he's not, because he's very useful.
Yeah.
It's more of who's going to want to take him and pay him, because you're essentially giving him up as a rental. I'm just kind of thinking off the top of my head. Do they call New Orleans and say, give us Eric Bledsoe because they just need a point guard?
No.
The only reason I bring that up, because Ime is his first year and you really don't want to look bad. So it's maybe you can buy Bledsoe on the low. That's a thing. Another one, maybe you do point guard platoon. Alfred Payton's going to be available. Have fun with him, Boston. I don't know. You could look at maybe Kyle Lowry to give him some money. Like, you just need a sure thing at the point guard, because that's really what they need, a distributor. And Kemba, I love Kemba Walker. I love me some Kemba Walker. Been following him since he was at Rice in the Bronx, now closed. He's a scorer. He's not a playmaker. He's not a facilitator. He can drop 30 in a game, and that's great. You lack defense, and that's just what you have to accept with him at this point. Now he's injury concerns. Now it's getting to be really bad. But you maybe have to give Kyle Lowry or someone like that a chance. You just need a sure thing at point guard. That's where I think it can go right in a lot of ways in that sense, and to give Ime stuff to work with. You got to think that way.
So that's the hope for the Celtics. Maybe there's some potential there. And the final thing we'll cover here for the show and the NBA as a whole, draft lottery occurred last night. Draft doesn't occur until July 29th, so there's some time for that. But just so we know, top 5 picks, I'll read them off real quick. Pistons are at number 1. The Rockets get the 2nd pick. Cleveland Cavs with the 3rd. The Raptors take the 4th, and the Magic get the 5th pick. Nothing too surprising here. A lot of teams that were expected to get these picks get it. It's usually how the draft works. Houston got robbed from the number 1 pick. After that season, they were the worst team. But I think the final thing here, and I guess Kate Cunningham agrees, he's only working out for the Pistons.
Yeah, pretty much.
That guy's the surefire number 1 pick. But I've heard people saying the Pistons might want to trade their pick. The GM, I think, said they're open to it. I think that's a horrible idea. Keep the pick. You guys are one of the worst teams in the league. Draft your player.
Please, I tweeted this last night. The Detroit Pistons and the Cleveland Cavaliers should fire themselves from the NBA for just being consistently horrible. For the Cavs, other than LeBron James, they just stink. And Detroit has not figured it out since 2005.
Yeah.
I know that everyone's going to say the Knicks like this and that, but the Knicks at least are attention seekers.
Yeah.
That's the one thing. But, like, my God, this is just – I feel bad for whoever's going to go there, for those 2 places. I really do.
And an update with New York, the Knicks have the 19th pick and the 21st pick from Dallas in this year's draft. And the Brooklyn Nets have the 27th pick, rounding out the New York team's picks in the first round. So that will do it for us here on One Nightly. I'm Nick Fada, Thomas Aiello with me here. We had a blast doing this. Thank you all for listening. Alex Wool's the man as our producer. As always, he's great as well. Thank you all for listening. This is a production of WFUV Sports.